All right, so we have seen lengthy and detailed responses and attacks that have been coming on part of the Congress party and its leaders who have been denouncing the validity and the history which is now attached to the Sengol, saying that there is no documented evidence whatsoever that Mountbatten and Rajaji and Nehru describing the sceptre as a symbol of transfer of power of British power to India. Now this is being fact-checked by the BJP. And there has been documents and evidence that have now been put across by the BJP, pointing out to the Congress's allies policy note, the Sengol ceremony, which is not bogus. Madhav and Rishabh both joining us live right now. Madhav, what is this note all about? Because this in particular goes on to mention the Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowments policy note of 2021-22 that has been published by the DMK government.
Well, what sources in the government are and the establishment are trying to say over here is that when the DMK government's own note specifically mentions the Sengol and talks about its role as, what role it has played in terms of the Sengol ceremony of 1947 in terms of the handover of power, what sources in the establishment are trying to suggest over here is that it is not correct for members of opposition to now raise questions of the ceremony about whether it actually took place and its own significance, given that the old DMK government itself, in its note, has mentioned this. So they are raising very serious questions to counter the statements coming in from a section of the opposition, which has been raising questions about whether the Sengol actually symbolize the transfer of power or not. And those questions about the veracity of the claims made by the government is sought to be countered with this particular document, which is the Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowments Policy Note of 2021, which has been published by the DMK government.
Right, but Madhav, how do we understand, because the very same party whose policy note this is has been calling it and has been denouncing the Sengol, calling it as a symbol of monarchy, not democracy?
Well, there are, of course, views of what role the Sengol has played, and certainly there are those who believe that in a modern constitutional democracy, monarchic symbols and symbols of many would call autocracy, such as a throne or a crown or a Sengol or a sceptre, have no place. However, the government says that this is part of the culture and that it is being restored to its rightful place at the door of the speaker, the chair of the speaker in the new house. And that's why they are going to be having a ceremony which will not just have a puja in the morning and installing of this particular Sengol, so that when the new parliament building is formally inaugurated at around noon on Sunday, the Sengol would already have its place of prominence at the dais as far as the speaker is concerned. So near the speaker's chair is where the Sengol is going to be installed. However, what will opposition have to say further to these counters of what the government has said, particularly to this particular note of the DMK government? All of these, of course, are awaited at the moment.
All right, because this is politics at its peak there. As we are looking, just barely few hours to go when the grand inauguration ceremony that will be taking place. Because Rishabh, how do we understand it? Because it goes against their own party lines and their beliefs as well. If we talk about the DMK, not just even the Congress party here, because Jairam Ramesh of the Congress party has been saying that there is no documented evidence whatsoever describing the sceptre as a symbol of transfer of power.
Definitely, Jairam Ramesh in a long explaining tweet says that there is no documentary evidence of the Sengol being the symbol of transfer of power, but the BJP is now countering, as Madhav was also rightly pointing out, that there are documents that have been released by the DMK government documenting this Sengol as the evidence of transfer of power. But Jairam Ramesh on social media have been ridiculing the government, saying that the government and the Prime Minister is trying to create a narrative based on WhatsApp history, quote unquote WhatsApp history is what Congress is calling it now. The Congress says that yes, the Sengol existed, yes, a mutt from Madras province did give it to Jawaharlal Nehru, but did it mean the symbol of transfer of power? That Congress is contesting. But now the sources in BJP has released these documents and say that, see, the DMK is basically doing it, released this document and how things are. So both BJP and Congress, the war of vote continues.
Something that we've also accessed there. Rishabh and Madhav, please continue to be with us. Shiva, if you can tell us about the significance of this document, which talks about the transfer of power from British Governor General Lord Mountbatten to the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru.
Yes, of course, the document accessed by us details out as to why it is important, and what is the importance of this scepter? At the time of enthronement, the traditional guru or the preceptor of the king would hand over the ceremonial scepter to the new ruler. Following this tradition, when the Oduars completed the singing of the last line of 11th stanza from Kularu Patigam Thevaram, it was handed over the gold-plated silver scepter to Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and this signified the transfer of power from the British Governor-General Lord Mountbatten to the first Prime Minister of India. Amita.
Right, because here the BJP has been coming out to say, Madhav, that this is the history that Tamil Nadu government's document talks about from 2021-22, saying that this document that has been published by the DMK government, which proudly recounts Sengol's ceremony back in 1947.
Well, that's certainly the significance and the context in which this particular aspect is being spoken about. And certainly, of course, the role of the Sengol, if the Tamil Nadu government itself has brought out, notes which have very clearly mentioned the role of the Adina, mentioned the role of the Sengol. The claim of the BJP is that then why are they in denial of not only their own government's notifications and documentations, but also of their own history and culture is a question that the BJP is posing. Of course, opposition parties have said that, there's no place for a religious symbol inside the house. They've also raised the question as to whether all of this is being done only to build a certain type of narrative which is suitable to the BJP. Those are some questions that have certainly come in from the opposition side. But at the moment, it's a war of words. There are, in fact, reports that have been published in a section of the media today, which also raise questions about the veracity of the claims that have been made by the BJP, and in fact, questioning whether there is enough documentary evidence to show that the transfer of the Sengol actually signified transfer of power from the British via Lord Mountbatten to the first Prime Minister at that point of time, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And there are queries that have been made, which were quoted by several political leaders from the opposition to raise questions as far as the Sengol itself and its own historical role is concerned. In response to that, these documents that are being cited are documents that have been released by the Tamil Nadu government and which very clearly record the role of the Sengol and its own importance. So for the state government has...
Well, the BJP has been calling it as the sacred scepter that will be now installed in the new parliament complex. The opposition, that includes the Congress, which has been calling it as bogus. And even when it comes to the DMK, the note that has also been accessed and also been mentioned by the BJP leaders, which talks proudly about when it comes to handing over the scepter to the first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, has been calling it that it is a symbol of monarchy and not that of democracy. Let's